Well, Mr. Chairman, Michael, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the honour of inviting me back to Edinburgh University. The choice of Prime Ministers, I understand. Like Michael, I was a student here at the University of Edinburgh, and Edinburgh remains as my favourite city. I wanted briefly to start, before getting into the addressing the motion, just to tell you a little bit more about UKIP. I know you're politics students, many of you probably understand it better than I do, but let me just tell you briefly what we stand for. Firstly, we don't hate Europe, as Norway and Switzerland don't hate Europe, but they're not part of the EU, but they are the richest countries per head in Europe as well. We just want Britain to be the same. Wishing to leave the EU is not right-wing either. I'd like to point out that the present Prime Minister and Tony Blair were both elected in 1983 on a policy platform, a manifesto of leaving the European Union. And that was by the very left-wing Michael Foot at that time. We are a non-racist, non-sectarian party. We have branches in all 4 nations, including Northern Ireland. And we don't just believe, we're not just all about Europe, we do actually believe really in democracy and we're anti-bureaucracy. And finally, we believe that in one union, essentially, the British Union, which I'm glad, LibDems have supported it here in the Scottish Parliament, but we believe the British Union is being undermined by the European Union, and there really is only one choice between which union do you want. You probably know we have 10 MEPs, 2 Lords and over 50 councillors, and we did obtain 2.6 million votes in 2004, 16% of the UK vote. Lastly say about UKIP, even though we're small, rather like the LibDems have in the past, we can actually, we can be in a very key position when it comes to a hung parliament or a very tight election, because Conservatives blame us for losing them 42 marginal seats, or up to 42 marginal seats. And we actually are quite key players in this very tight game. Well, ladies and gentlemen, just then to turn to the motion, just to say that the reason that we want to leave the European Union are really the 3 key points we make are firstly, that the EU has imposed on our country over 120,000 directives and regulations. And when you think that only 10% of our economy, yes, it's important 10%, but only 10% of our economy is trade with the EU, and that as of last year we actually now trade more with the rest of the world than we do with the EU, and that 80% of our economy is British companies trading with British consumers, England with Scotland or whatever. 80% really has nothing or very little to do with the EU. But now the EU is actually now responsible, secondly, for 75% of our laws coming down to Westminster, and in Germany they reckon it's 80%. And I think it's deeply worrying, talking about we all want to avoid war, obviously, but when the German President Herzog actually says that Germany is no longer a parliamentary democracy because of the number of laws, the 80% coming from the EU, that worries me. I don't know about you, but that worries me. And then the cost aspect, the third point. We estimate, and no one gives you these figures because you have to work them all out, that the EU actually costs this country about £60 billion a year. That's not all cash by any means. There's a lot of red tape in there, about 26 billion. There's a CAP, farming payments, that's about 15 billion. But our net contributions are about 14 billion. And we get some money back, yes, but it is a major cost. And it's about £1,000 a head when you estimate in gross terms for every man, woman and child in the UK. And I would say that just this week, just a few days ago, and I know Michael's a chartered accountant, so he won't approve of this, but for the 13th consecutive year, the EU's own auditors, the European Court of Auditors, have refused to sign the EU's accounts. It's the 13th consecutive year. It's like a super Enron. And that's made on the basis of fraud. I mean, it's farming payments going for golf courses, which is a nice trick, isn't it? Which they found out recently. So, this is a very serious point. It's like a super Enron. And if it was a company, the directors would be in jail. And to be honest, I feel very strongly about that because our new treasurer is Martha Andreasen, who used to be the chief financial accountant of the European Union. When she pointed out about this fraud, she got hounded out. And there's lots of whistleblowers who paid a terrible price for trying to bring public attention to the level of fraud and the level of corruption within the EU. And I think whatever our stance is on this, that is deeply concerning. Now, the overwhelming question, we believe, is this one. What benefits do we gain as a country in return for the costs I've touched upon? And would we retain those benefits, but not be in the EU like Norway and Switzerland retain those benefits? They're independent countries with free trade agreements or bilateral deals with the EU. And you could actually add to that, obviously, the free movement of peoples and capital, i.e. you could retain the benefits, such as they are of the EU, without actually being in this political superstate that is now arising. What about all this lovely money we get from the EU, all these EU grants, in the Highlands? You see it a lot in Ireland as well, Northern Ireland as well. Well, we point out it's actually our money coming back to us. For every £1 we get back, we have to put in we actually cost about £2.60. When you think about it, we are actually a huge net contributor to the European Union. And without the rebate that they're trying to seize back from us as we speak, without that rebate, we'd be the largest net contributor of all. And only last year did France actually become a net contributor in any sense at all. Before then, it's taken more money out from the EU than it's paid in. And we estimate, again, they won't tell you these figures, you have to go and dig them out, but, we've paid about £213 billion gross since we joined the EU in 1973. Now, it's all very well, if the EU is just about economics, that would be one thing. But we believe that what's happening now is deeply worrying and deeply serious. And the reality is that the EU is set on creating a single, unified, undemocratic, unaccountable political state, the United States of Europe. And it's not doing it openly. One thing, if it was a referendum and we all agreed on it, we wouldn't have much of a leg to stand on. It was agreed by the British people. But they're not doing it that way. They're doing it by stealth, they're doing it by deceit, and they're doing it without your consent. Just look at the Constitution, or the Reform or Lisbon Treaty, whatever they cynically refer it's got various names. Now this treaty obviously requires parliamentary approval, but the Labour government is adamant you're not going to get a referendum on it, even though 4 out of 5 people in this country want a referendum. And I do support what Michael said. Yes, we're all there, we all want a referendum, really for the sake of democracy, for heaven's sake. It's in the Labour manifesto, they really should implement it. But where we differ here is that, we seriously believe that this treaty is the former EU constitution resurrected, and it's not just us saying that. This is the constitution that France and Holland rejected, but brought back in a rather cynical changed form. Bertie Ahern, the Irish Prime Minister, estimates it's 90% of the original constitution, yet our British Prime Minister says it is wholly different. They cannot both be right. Now, the pro-European Labour MP Gisela Stewart, who helped write the original constitution, she's very pro this, she says the real reason for the constitution, this is a quote, its real impact is the political deepening of the European Union. She describes her own government's stance, which is brave of her, as being a patently dishonest position. Now, I don't often quote Gustave d'Estaing, but let me try now. He was the author of the original constitution, and he